and welcome to Wish You Were Here today. As ever, we've got lots of holiday ideas to inspire you, and yet again you've got a chance to win your very own holiday in our competition. So let's have a sneak preview of where today's lucky winner is going to be heading off to. All you have to do is answer this question. Phone lines are open right now, so get dialing. Calls cost 25 pence, and we're going to announce the winner before the end of the show. So in 30 minutes' time, you could be dragging your suitcases out of the loft. In the meantime, let's check out where our travellers have been. Rwanda is known the world over for all the wrong reasons. In the last 10 years, this country has seen civil unrest, revolution and genocide, which are not the usual criteria for a holiday destination. But remarkably, Rwanda is back on its feet and it's more politically stable, and tourists are coming back again. Of course, the big attraction is the mountain gorillas. And that's what drew me to Africa, to join a gorilla conservation safari in the Volcanoes National Park. Rwanda is Africa's most densely populated country. Only 9.5 million people live here, but it's quite a small place. And looking out of the window, you can see that just about every square inch of countryside has been terraced and cultivated. And it's beautiful countryside, almost alpine in places. We're quite high up, so the weather here is very pleasant, never too hot or cold. But if you do need to acclimatise, Lakeside Gisenyi in the northwest is the place to head for. There was a lot of trouble here in Gisenyi in the mid-90s, but the fact that this town, which is right on the border with war-torn Congo, is stable now is a good barometer of how stable Rwanda is as a whole. The Congo is so close, in some places it's easy to accidentally cross the border. Don't. This region used to be a Belgian colony, and you can see the European influence today. Just look at this place. I never imagined I would find somewhere that looked like this on the edge of Lake Kivu. I feel more like I've blundered into somebody's garden in Kent or Surrey. In the 1940s and 50s, this area was full of wealthy Europeans. There were aristocrats, adventurers, fortune seekers, and apparently around Lake Kivu it was party central. Lots of money been spent on having fun. The relaxing bit's over. It's time to head towards the volcanoes and the national park. It's also time to acknowledge Rwanda's recent troubled past in a small cemetery in the provincial town of Ruhengeri. This is a graveyard for some of the victims of the genocide. Everywhere that you travel in Rwanda, you come across these. And that's because, well, quite simply, there were an awful lot of bodies to bury. Roads are generally good in Rwanda, but there are some very bumpy off-road experiences. And what about accommodation? Well, I stayed in a basic but clean guest house and was pleasantly surprised by the standard of the tented camp. This is spectacular. Lake Ruhonda. And if you get bored with that lake, there's another one over here. This is Lake Burera. My tent looks out onto it. I think this is possibly the best setting for a campsite I've ever seen. I could literally just flop down on this bed and stare out at that view for ages. Now the highlight of my trip to Rwanda, the mountain gorillas. British scientist Katie Fawcett runs the research programme here. So Katie, the big question is, will we see gorillas?
Well, it's not 100% guarantee, but the gorillas are tracked every day. And we have the trackers up there now waiting for us. We went out early tracking the gorillas.
Oh, so people are already looking for them now?
Already looking for them.
In the dark? This is Francis, and he has just informed me that we have to hike for at least an hour to find the gorilla. And that is once we've reached the national park, because we're not even in it yet. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
There are only around 650 mountain gorillas in the world, and about half of them live here. Now, a couple of pointers about this holiday. You have to be physically fit. There's a lot of clambering and climbing around. You need good boots, clothes that blend in with the environment, and don't even think about shorts. Your legs will be ripped to pieces. And something you might not think about are gloves. You're constantly hauling yourself up on sharp vegetation. These are mountain biking gloves, but gardening gloves would do. Mountain gorillas spend nearly a third of every day on the move, so we have to keep moving too. Oh my God, there's one just there. Come round. If you can see just over my shoulder. How close? Just look at the size of these things. Gorillas live in family units. These are from the Sousa group. 34 in all. I'm just amazed at how close we are. You can see the one at the tree, and there's others just lurking in the vegetation. Now, the reason we get so close is these gorillas, this group, is habituated, which means it's familiar with the research staff. It's used to people. Still wild, though. Look at the little tiny one. It's a huge family group, and there's a tiny little baby one just clinging onto the back of its mother. Look at that big fella. And this one is intrigued by our camera equipment. Oh my God. And what's that noise that calms them down?
It's called a belch vocalization.
Right, belch vocalization. How do I do it? Like that?
Yeah. It's like a contact call. There's 3 silverbacks in this group.
Oh dear, I used my belch vocalization then. That was so close.
And this here is the blackback.
So this
That's
is a male.
young adult male.
Young adult male.
In a couple of years, he'll be silver.
What are the major threats to these gorillas?
One of the major threats to tourism is the risk of disease transmission from humans to gorillas. Because basically gorillas are susceptible to all the diseases we are as humans, but they lack any of the immunity.
Right. So basically, if you're ill, you can't come.
Yeah.
So
this is why we keep 5 metres between us and the gorillas.
Where possible.
Where possible, yeah. And we limit the length of the visit just to 1 hour.
Yeah.
And only 1 visit per group per day.
Another major threat is poaching, and gorillas are sometimes kidnapped for zoos, private collections and research.
I feel so incredibly privileged. I'm surrounded by mountain gorillas.
Big silverbacks like this one can weigh up to 200 kilos, about 4 times heavier than me. And this one's taken quite a fancy to our guide. Rwandan authorities are strict about protecting their biggest tourist attraction. They limit visitors and charge a big fee for permits. This all helps preserve an endangered species.
Well, we got slightly closer to the gorillas than we anticipated there, and something that you didn't see on camera is that one of them came up and walloped our guide on the backside. Now, communication-wise, Kinyarwanda and French are the main languages, but we found English quite widely spoken, particularly in Kigali. On a trip like this, you will need a load of jabs, including yellow fever, and you'll need the certificate. Typhoid, hepatitis, and rabies is also quite a good idea. But please do not let that put you off. It is definitely worth it. Don't forget, you've still got time to enter and win today's competition. Lines are only going to be open for the next few minutes to give us a chance to announce the winner's name before the end of the programme. So pick up that phone, and that name could be yours. And we've still got all of this coming up on Wish You Were Here Today. Welcome back to part 2 of Wish You Were Here Today. Now, if I were to ask you to name some Caribbean islands, Aruba probably wouldn't be at the top of your list. It's part of the Dutch Antilles and is more familiar to Dutch holidaymakers than to us Brits. But that could all be about to change as charter flights from Gatwick and Manchester, introduced last year, start to make their mark. Well, it's a good job that Rodri was wearing a wetsuit when he was underwater there, because aside from being rather distracting, public nudity of any kind is illegal and insulting to the Aruban people. Now, would you ever put the words bargains and Paris in the same sentence? I probably wouldn't be inclined to. But we set antiques... Right, if I asked you to name the top tourist attractions in Paris, what would you say? The Eiffel Tower, Le Louvre, Moulin Rouge, Sacré-Cœur, perhaps? But what about Père Lachaise Cemetery? Ever heard of it? Well, it's the graveyard where Doors singer Jim Morrison is buried, and it's one of the top 3 most visited places in Paris. Well, that's all from me for today. I'll be back again tomorrow with some more exciting holiday ideas for you and another chance for you to win a trip in our competition. See you then.